The political theater on display in Parliament yesterday peeled back the curtain on a government visibly grappling with its own contradictions. With Prime Minister Keir Starmer overseas at a pivotal NATO summit, the full weight of scrutiny fell on Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner and Chancellor Rachel Reeves, though only one took the floor. What followed wasn't just another round of parliamentary sparring. It was a moment of exposure, where internal tensions didn't just surface, they were broadcast live to the nation. Rayner, stepping in at the dispatch box for the second week in a row, was met not by Keir Mather or Penny Mordaunt, but by Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride, subbing in for Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch. But Stride didn't just fill the space. He seized it. With clinical precision, he began dismantling Labour's fragile economic narrative, targeting the autumn budget and the looming specter of tax hikes. His weapon wasn't bluster or ideology. It was observation, tone, and the unmistakable whiff of political blood in the water. Stride's opening was sharp and strategic. Rather than launching into the expected ideological critique, he claimed to agree with Rayner, or more specifically, her implied discomfort with the Chancellor's tax agenda. And right on cue, the cameras caught it. Rachel Reeves, seated front and center on the government bench, grimacing in real time as Stride chipped away at the credibility of her fiscal framework. It was a political image that could prove enduring. A top official reacting not to external attack, but to internal friction. Stride wasn't done. He pressed Rayner on whether she'd repeat Labour's campaign pledge not to raise taxes on working people. Her refusal to give a clear, unambiguous yes was as loud as any shout. The chamber erupted. The silence was deafening. To seasoned observers, it marked a clear shift from campaign promises to governing realities. The narrative was no longer controlled by Labour's messaging, but by its silences. The focus then turned to council tax, one of the most regressive and personally felt levies in British politics. Labour had promised a freeze, yet the Institute for Fiscal Studies now predicts historic increases, potentially up to £7 billion. And with local authorities squeezed by central funding shortfalls, there may be little choice. Rayner responded, with the usual political reflex, attacking the previous government's record. But the deflection rang hollow. It wasn't about what the Conservatives did, it was about what Labour would now do. And that's where clarity was lacking. Worse still for Labour, the attack broadened. Stride moved to internal dissent. Over 120 Labour MPs reportedly opposed planned changes to disability benefits, a rebellion that isn't just policy-related, it's a challenge to party discipline. When more than a third of your caucus prepares to vote against core policy, it speaks volumes. Stride exploited this with ease, suggesting even Rayner looked embarrassed defending plans she might not support. The jab landed. In the background loomed in even more damning detail. Leaked reports of a memo from Rayner to Reeves, recommending new tax avenues targeting savers and investors. The government, it seems, is now hunting for revenue anywhere it can find it. That makes the autumn budget not just a fiscal exercise, but a reckoning. Stride, for his part, delivered his critique with a tone of calm authority, almost academic. He wasn't selling fear. He was pointing out contradictions. If taxes aren't going up and borrowing will be constrained, where's the money coming from? He asked. It wasn't rhetorical, it was forensic, and it forced the audience, inside and outside Parliament, to ask the same. Labour's challenge isn't just financial, it's philosophical. During the campaign, they promised better public services, upgraded infrastructure, and no tax hikes for working people. But the numbers were never fully explained. Now, in office, Reeves is the one caught holding that bag. She is respected, competent, and cautious. But yesterday, her body language told a story of unease. The weight of those contradictions is pressing down hard. You can't promise Scandinavian services with one of the G7's lowest tax burdens and expect no one to notice. This is the tightrope Reeves must now walk. Deliver enough to show progress without spooking the markets. Make bold moves without alienating the electorate. And all while balancing a party divided between economic caution and redistributive ambition. If you can manage it, fewer still survive. For the Conservatives, yesterday was vindication. The usual attacks were gone. No cries of socialism or wild spending sprees. Instead, it was detail, discipline, and a subtle pivot, away from noisy opposition to reasoned challenge. They're not aiming for headlines. They're aiming for trust, especially from those voters tired of broken promises and grand illusions. Meanwhile, Labour finds itself staring down the hardest phase of governance, where the slogans no longer shield you, and the numbers must finally speak. The economic headwinds are stiff. Growth is weak, public debt high, and the public mood increasingly impatient. As the budget nears, whispers of stealth taxes, threshold tweaks, and quietly rebranded levies grow louder. Internally, the friction is rising. The party's progressive flank is restless, concerned that Labour's pragmatism is straying into political cynicism. The discomfort on Reeves's face and Rayner's defensive deflections didn't just reveal a misstep, they exposed a tension between competing visions. One image, one moment, may come to symbolize it all, the collision between idealism and governance. For political observers, this wasn't just another PMQs. It was a preview of the battles to come. A government still finding its footing, an opposition sharpening its blade, and a nation inching toward an economic crossroads. This is where the real decisions happen, far from campaign stages, behind closed doors, and under crushing constraints. The question now is whether Labour can navigate this storm, or whether the promise of renewal will fade into the familiar rhythms of compromise. Because, as yesterday reminded us, it's one thing to win power. It's another entirely to wield it without losing your soul or your grip.